Picture the Ardennes forest in December 1944. Snow falls heavy and silent across the Belgian countryside, but beneath that serene blanket, thousands of American soldiers are locked in a frozen hell. The Battle of the Bulge has begun, and while bullets and shrapnel tear through the winter air, another enemy works just as ruthlessly, the cold itself. For every man cut down by German fire, another succumbs to hypothermia's creeping grip. In field hospitals and evacuation stations, medics face an impossible challenge. How do you save a life when the temperature alone can kill faster than the wound you're treating? The medical teams operating during winter campaigns in Europe confronted conditions that would paralyze modern emergency services. Imagine setting up a surgical tent in sub-zero temperatures, your breath forming ice crystals in the air as you work. The plasma meant to save lives freezes solid in its containers. Morphine syrettes become useless chunks of ice in medics' pockets. Wounded soldiers arrive at aid stations already blue-lipped and shivering uncontrollably, their core temperatures dropping minute by minute as shock and blood loss accelerate heat loss from their bodies. The standard wool blanket, that stalwart of military supply, becomes a cruel joke when soaked with blood, snow, or the muddy slush of the battlefield. Wet wool loses most of its insulating properties, and in the chaos of mass casualties, there's no time to dry equipment. Medics watched helplessly as men survived initial treatment, only to die from exposure during the critical hours of stabilization and transport. The problem wasn't just keeping patients warm, it was maintaining life-sustaining heat in an environment actively hostile to human survival. Out of this desperation came improvisation that would later inform modern emergency medicine. Medical units began experimenting with layering techniques that went beyond simple blankets. They discovered that creating dead air space between layers was crucial, using whatever materials were available, from tent canvas to salvaged German greatcoats. Some forward-thinking units requisitioned rubberized ground sheets, positioning them beneath patients to prevent heat loss into the frozen earth, a principle that survival experts still teach today. Certain evacuation hospitals near the front lines gained access to experimental heated pads. Cumbersome devices that required generators and careful monitoring to prevent burns on already traumatized tissue. These weren't the sleek electric blankets of later decades, but rather rudimentary resistive heating elements enclosed in protective covers used sparingly and only in semi-permanent medical installations. The real innovation happened at the squad level, where medics learned to use body heat as a resource, positioning multiple casualties together and using salvaged materials to create microenvironments that could mean the difference between life and death. What the medics of the Battle of the Bulge understood intuitively is what modern wilderness medicine now teaches systematically. Heat loss kills, and prevention is everything. Their improvisations with layering, vapor barriers, and heat retention inform how we approach hypothermia treatment today. The principle of getting patients off the cold ground, creating dead air spaces for insulation, and understanding that wet equals death in cold weather. These weren't textbook lessons, but hard-won knowledge written in the snow and blood of the Ardennes. The legacy of World War II cold weather medicine extends beyond the battlefield. Every space blanket in a modern first aid kit, every understanding of how to treat cold injuries, every protocol for warming hypothermic patients traces its lineage back to those desperate winter months. Those medics, working with inadequate resources in impossible conditions, developed Fieldcraft that saves lives 3 generations later. Today, as you prepare your own emergency gear or study bushcraft techniques, just remember that the most sophisticated survival technology is, quite often, simply refined common sense forged in the crucible of necessity. The soldiers and medics of the Second World War didn't have modern materials, but, well, they had ingenuity, observation, and, above all, the will to adapt. That legacy is yours to carry forward. Subscribe to Fieldcraft Chronicles to continue exploring the forgotten skills and hard-won wisdom of those who survived history's harshest tests. Share this with anyone who values self-reliance, historical truth, and, the art of survival. The past has much to teach those willing to listen.